I was once a respected family man in suburban Chicago. Everyone thought I had it all. A beautiful home, a successful career as an insurance executive, and a loving family with my wife Lisa, of 18 years, and our two wonderful kids, Jack and Amy. But beneath that perfect exterior, a hollow feeling had been growing inside me. What happened next destroyed everything I had built. One terrible day, my 17-year-old son Jack walked in on something he was never meant to see, and in his confusion tried to protect me. Before I begin my story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever had to face the consequences of a decision that shattered your world. The story of my downfall begins 3 years ago. I had built a life that looked perfect from the outside. Our 4-bedroom colonial in Highland Park featured manicured lawns and a backyard pool where we hosted summer barbecues for neighbors and colleagues. At 42, I had risen to senior vice president at Meridian Insurance Group, earning respect throughout the industry for my analytical mind and leadership skills. My suits were tailored, my watch was expensive, and my smile practiced to perfection. Lisa, my wife, had been my college sweetheart. We married young right after graduation, filled with dreams and passion. She was strikingly beautiful with chestnut hair and intelligent eyes that could read me like a book. Over the years, she had built her own impressive career as a corporate attorney at a prestigious downtown firm. When we first met, we could talk for hours about everything and nothing. Our connection had been immediate and intense. Jack, our son, had grown into a strapping young man at 17. Captain of the high school wrestling team, he inherited his mother's sharp intelligence and my competitive drive. He stood 6'2" with broad shoulders and a protective nature, especially toward his younger sister. Jack had a strong moral compass and sense of justice that made me proud. He planned to study criminal justice in college, hoping to eventually join the FBI. Amy, our 14-year-old daughter, was perceptive beyond her years. Slender and thoughtful with her mother's features and my blue eyes, she noticed everything. While Jack was outgoing and physical, Amy was introspective and creative, filling notebooks with stories and observations. She had always been Daddy's little girl, curling up beside me to share secrets or ask questions about the world. Her trust in me was absolute. From the outside, we were the American dream, but inside our home, things had gradually changed. The passionate conversations between Lisa and me had dwindled to discussions about schedules, bills, and the kids. She began staying later at the office, pursuing partnership with singular focus. When she came home, she would bring work with her, falling asleep surrounded by case files. I understood ambition, but I felt myself becoming a footnote in her life. I tried reconnecting, planned date nights at restaurants where we had once lingered over wine, booked weekend getaways that she would inevitably cancel due to work emergencies, attempted conversations that felt increasingly like talking to a stranger. Each rejection left me feeling more isolated, more invisible. The woman who once knew me completely now looked through me. Our intimacy had become scheduled and mechanical when it happened at all. That was when Megan arrived at Meridian. Transferred from our Seattle office, she joined my department as a risk assessment specialist. 10 years younger than me, with auburn hair and a ready laugh, she approached her work with refreshing enthusiasm. In meetings, she would catch my eye when someone made an absurd suggestion, sharing silent amusement. She asked my opinion, valued my experience, and made me feel seen again. For months, our relationship remained strictly professional. We collaborated on projects, occasionally having lunch with the team. But slowly, imperceptibly, boundaries began to blur. Coffee breaks stretched longer. Work conversations drifted to personal topics. She told me about her divorce, her struggles dating in a new city. I found myself sharing my own frustrations, though initially framing them as hypothetical. That May, we both attended a 3-day insurance conference in Minneapolis. After sessions ended each day, we found ourselves gravitating together at networking events. On the final evening, over drinks in the hotel bar, our hands touched briefly. The electricity of that contact startled us both. We pulled away, but something had changed. I told myself this connection was innocent, just friendship, with someone who understood me. The following week, Jack had his state wrestling championship match. I had attended every important event in his athletic career, sitting beside Lisa, cheering until my voice grew hoarse. But that Friday, Megan suggested drinks after work to discuss a new client. One drink became two, then dinner. I texted Lisa that a work emergency required my attention. When I finally arrived home past midnight, I found Jack still awake, his gold medal on the kitchen counter. His face when he looked at me remains branded in my memory. Disappointment. Confusion. The beginning of suspicion. I gave excuses about the difficult client. The urgent situation. He nodded, accepting my words, but something had shifted. As he headed upstairs, he paused and said, "It is what it is, Dad." The phrase he used when teammates let him down. I had become the first major disappointment in my son's life. And it was just the beginning. The line I had sworn never to cross dissolved one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Megan and I were working late alone in the office conference room. Our knees touched beneath the table. Neither of us moved away. When she looked up at me, all my rationalizations crumbled. I kissed her 18 years of fidelity abandoned in an instant. We locked the conference room door, and in those moments of passion, I convinced myself I deserved this, that my happiness mattered more than my vows. Afterward, shame and excitement battled within me. I drove home sick, with guilt showering, before embracing Lisa, looking into the trusting eyes of my children. I swore to myself it was a one-time mistake, that I would recommit to my family, to being the man they believed me to be. But 3 days later, when Megan texted, I responded immediately. Our affair had begun in earnest. We created elaborate systems to communicate, separate messaging apps, code words, for when we could talk, secret meetings in hotel rooms paid for in cash. Each encounter followed the same emotional cycle: anticipation, ecstasy, then crushing guilt that I would drown in justifications. Lisa had emotionally abandoned me. Our marriage existed only on paper. I deserved happiness. The lies I told myself were as numerous as those I told my family. 2 months into the affair, carelessness crept in. I began taking unnecessary risks, calling Megan from the backyard when Lisa was inside, extending lunch breaks without explanation, keeping receipts from restaurants where we had met. I started wearing cologne again, buying new clothes, leaving the office at unusual hours. The thrill of almost getting caught became part of the intoxication. There were warning signs that should have stopped me. Lisa finding an unfamiliar earring in my car that I explained away as belonging to a colleague who needed a ride. Jack noticing a text notification on my phone that I scrambled to hide. Amy asking quietly one evening if I was happy, her perceptive eyes studying my startled reaction. Each close call increased my heart rate, but never my caution. Lisa began watching me more carefully. The attorney in her was collecting evidence, though I was too self-absorbed to recognize the signs. Her questions became more specific. Who was calling? Why was I working so many late hours when quarter end was weeks away? Why had our joint credit card been used at a hotel downtown? I crafted excuses, growing defensive when pressed. Our arguments intensified, usually with Lisa withdrawing into cold silence and me retreating to my home office. Jack started positioning himself between us during these tense moments. At 17, he stood taller than me, his protective instincts engaged. "Everything okay?" he would ask, eyes moving from his mother's tight expression to my forced nonchalance. I would clap him on the shoulder, assuring him adults sometimes disagreed about nothing important. But I saw doubt growing in his eyes. My son was not a child anymore. He could sense the fracturing of our family foundation. Amy withdrew into her room, more often emerging with reddened eyes. When I asked what was wrong, she would shrug and say, "Nothing. Just tired." But I sometimes caught her watching Lisa and me with a sadness beyond her years. Children always know when something is wrong, even when they cannot name it. My sweet, sensitive daughter was absorbing our tension, carrying it silently. The deception was consuming me, yet I continued convincing myself no permanent damage was occurring. If no one discovered the truth, I reasoned no one would be hurt. I could have my excitement with Megan while maintaining the stability of family life. The compartmentalization required exhausted me, but I had gone too far to turn back. Or so I believed. July arrived with sweltering heat. Lisa announced she was taking the kids to her parents' lake house in Wisconsin for the weekend. Amy had been fighting a summer cold, and the clean air would help her recover. Jack had agreed to go, though reluctantly preferring to train with his wrestling coach. They would leave Friday afternoon and return Sunday evening. My mind immediately calculated the opportunity this presented. With reckless abandon, I invited Megan to our home. It was a boundary I had previously maintained. My affair might be destructive, but at least it had never infiltrated the sacred space of my family. Now, desperate for greater thrills, I shattered even that principle. Megan hesitated, sensing the escalation, but ultimately agreed. We planned for her to arrive Saturday morning and stay until Sunday afternoon hours before my family's return. The forbidden nature of bringing her into my marital bedroom created a new level of excitement and shame. We spent Saturday exploring the house like trespassers, making love in spaces that held 18 years of family memories. That evening, I grilled steaks on the patio where I had taught Jack to cook his first burger. We swam in the pool, where I had held Amy as she learned to float. My compartments were collapsing into one another, reality and fantasy colliding. Sunday morning, my phone rang. It was Lisa, her voice tight with concern. Amy's cold had worsened. They were coming home early to get her to our family doctor. "We will be home in about 2 hours," she said. Panic flashed through me, but quick calculations assured me there was time. Megan and I would have one last encounter before she left. The family would never know how close they had come to discovering my betrayal. But fate had other plans. 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Jack driving ahead with Amy. She feels awful. Coming to get medicine before doctor. ETA. 15 minutes. Horror washed through me. I urged Megan to dress quickly, explaining the situation in frantic bursts. We had barely pulled on clothes when we heard the front door open downstairs, and Jack calling out, "Dad, you home?" Megan suggested hiding in the bathroom until they left. It seemed the safest option. I stepped into the hallway, calling down that I would be right there. But Jack was already bounding up the stairs, explaining about Amy's worsening symptoms. I met him at the top of the staircase, blocking his path to the master bedroom. My hair disheveled, shirt misbuttoned. His eyes narrowed, taking in my appearance, the nervousness in my voice. "I need to grab her prescription from your bathroom," he said, trying to move past me. I stalled, suggesting I would get it myself. His gaze moved past me to the master bedroom door, slightly ajar. Then came the sound that would destroy everything. Megan, nervous and moving around in the bedroom, knocked something over with a crash. Jack's expression transformed instantly. "Someone is in there," he stated, not a question. Before I could respond, his protective instincts took over. "Stay here," he commanded, rushing past me toward his room. I called after him, following, but he emerged seconds later with a baseball bat, the one from his Little League championships. The realization of what he believed was happening hit me with sickening clarity. My son thought an intruder was in our home, possibly having attacked me. "Jack, no." I lunged for him, but he was already racing toward the master bedroom, fueled by adrenaline and the desire to protect his home. I had never seen such determination on his young face. In that moment, he was not my 17-year-old boy, but a man ready to defend his family against perceived danger. All because of the web of deception I had created. The next moments unfolded in slow-motion horror. Jack burst through the bedroom door, baseball bat, raised a primal shout escaping his throat. Megan, startled and terrified, screamed at the sight of a large young man charging toward her. In the chaotic seconds that followed, Jack registered a strange woman in his parents' bedroom, partially dressed his father in pursuit. Confusion flashed across his face, the scenario before him not matching his expectations. Before I could reach them, Megan reacted instinctively. What I had never known about her in our months of intimacy suddenly revealed itself. She had extensive martial arts, training from years of competitive judo. As Jack hesitated in his confusion, the bat lowering slightly, Megan executed a defensive move. Her legs swept outward in a precise arc, catching Jack behind the knees, while her arms simultaneously blocked and pushed. My son, unprepared for this counterattack, went down hard, his head striking the corner of the bedside table with a sickening crack. The baseball bat clattered to the floor as Jack collapsed unconscious. Blood immediately began pooling beneath his head. Megan stood, frozen hands covering her mouth. "Oh God! Oh God!" she repeated, backing away. I dropped to my knees beside my son, terror seizing my chest. My hands shook violently as I checked for a pulse, finding it strong but his stillness terrifying. I called his name repeatedly, gently patting his cheeks, afraid to move him with the head injury. After what seemed an eternity but was probably only 30 seconds, Jack groaned and his eyelids fluttered. Relief flooded me, immediately replaced by new horror, as his eyes focused on me. Recognition dawned, alongside betrayal. He was piecing together what he had actually interrupted. His father having an affair. His father betraying his mother, their family. Blood trickled down the side of his face as he looked at me with an expression I will never forget. Not anger, not even disappointment. Something worse. The death of respect. He tried to speak, then winced in pain. I reached to help him sit up, but he pushed my hands away with surprising strength, considering his injury. "Do not touch me." He managed, his voice thick. He struggled to his feet, swaying slightly. One hand pressed to the bleeding wound on his temple. I begged him to let me help, to let me explain. He looked through me then at Megan, who stood trembling against the wall. The contempt in his young face was devastating. That was when we heard the front door open again. Lisa's voice called up, followed by Amy's weaker one. They had arrived right behind Jack, my wife driving, while my sick daughter dozed in the passenger seat. Jack's eyes widened, the full catastrophe unfolding. "Amy," he whispered suddenly, remembering his sister was ill, that he had come for her medication. Even concussed, bleeding, his concern was for his family, unlike mine had been. Footsteps on the stairs. Lisa calling out, wondering why the medicine had not been brought down. Jack looked at me, one last chance to mitigate the damage. "Fix this," he demanded, through clenched teeth, but it was too late. Lisa appeared in the doorway, Amy pale behind her. They took in the scene in fragments. Jack bleeding. The strange woman partially dressed. My disheveled appearance. The unmistakable disarray of the bed. Lisa went completely still, the kind of stillness that precedes cataclysmic events. Amy pushed past her, rushing to her brother. "Jack, you are bleeding," she cried, pulling tissues from her pocket to press against his wound. Jack put his arm around his sister, protectively turning her away from the scene, but the damage was done. Her eyes moved from Megan to me, incomprehension transforming into understanding beyond her 14 years. "Get out," Lisa whispered to Megan, her voice controlled but lethal. "Get out of my house right now." Megan grabbed her purse and shoes, not bothering to fully dress, and fled past my family. No one watched her go. All eyes were on me. The architect of this destruction, Lisa, transformed before my eyes from my controlled professional wife to a woman consumed by rage and pain. "How could you?" she screamed, advancing on me. "In our home. With our children. Who are you?" Each question was a knife thrust. I had no answers, no explanations that could possibly justify what had happened. Every excuse I had mentally rehearsed evaporated in the face of the actual harm I had caused. Jack guided Amy toward the hallway, his arms still around her shoulders despite his own injury. "Come on, Ames," he murmured. "Let us go downstairs. You need your medicine. Always the protector, even now." Amy looked back at me, tears streaming down her face. Confusion and heartbreak evident. I reached toward her, calling her name. She turned away, allowing her brother to lead her from the scene of their childhood's end. Lisa was ice and fire combined. "You need to leave." Now, I cannot even look at you. When I tried to explain to apologize, she cut me off. Your son could have been seriously injured. Your daughter is sick and just witnessed her father destroying our family. There is nothing you can say. Nothing. Get out of this house. I gathered some clothes in a daze, moving on autopilot. As I headed downstairs, I saw Jack sitting with Amy in the kitchen holding an ice pack to his head, whispering reassurances as she cried silently. I approached them, desperate to somehow reach my children. Jack stood immediately, positioning himself between Amy and me. She does not want to talk to you, he stated flatly. Neither do I. Just go. I spent that night in a hotel room calling and texting Lisa repeatedly. No response. I left voice messages apologizing, explaining, pleading. The next morning, a single text arrived. Do not come back. We are done. I ignored her directive, driving home the following afternoon, hoping that with some distance we could at least begin a conversation. But the house was empty. Closets partially cleared of their clothing. A note on the kitchen counter informed me Lisa and the children were staying with her brother Daniel in Evanston. My calls to Lisa's brother went unanswered. When I drove to his house, no one came to the door, though cars were in the driveway. I returned daily until Daniel finally emerged, his expression coldly furious. Leave them alone, Cliff, he warned. Lisa is talking to lawyers. The kids do not want to see you. Jack needed stitches, by the way. Concussion, too. When I tried to push past him, desperate to see my children, Daniel blocked me physically. If you try to contact the kids directly, I will make you regret it. That is a promise. Lisa does not want them traumatized any further. I returned to find my credit cards deactivated. Our joint account emptied. Lisa's attorney contacted me with divorce papers citing adultery and endangerment of the children. The court granted Lisa an emergency order giving her full temporary custody, with no visitation rights for me pending psychological evaluation. My attorney warned me that fighting it would only drag painful details into public record, potentially causing more trauma for Jack and Amy. The collapse of my life accelerated with brutal efficiency. Megan, devastated by her role in injuring a teenager, requested transfer back to Seattle. Before leaving, she sent a detailed letter to Lisa through her attorney, confessing the extent of our affair and expressing deep remorse. She wanted nothing more to do with me. Word spread quickly through our professional circles. Clients began requesting different representatives. My boss called me into his office. Expression grave. The company image cannot sustain this kind of scandal, he explained, sliding a severance package across the desk. Suddenly unemployed, facing divorce, separated from my children. I found myself completely alone. Friends stopped returning calls. Neighbors crossed the street to avoid conversation. Parents of my children's friends blocked my number when I tried reaching out for information about Jack and Amy. I had become toxic by association. The community that had once respected me now shunned me completely. One night, sitting in my hotel room surrounded by fast food containers and whiskey bottles, I contemplated ending everything. What purpose remained when everything meaningful had been destroyed by my own actions? I had the pills. I had the alcohol. I had nothing left to lose. I began writing letters to my children, explaining the unexplainable, begging forgiveness they would likely never grant. The knock at my door came unexpectedly. Thomas, my college roommate, who had moved to Chicago years earlier, but with whom I had lost touch. Somehow, he had heard about my situation. Jesus, Cliff, he said, surveying the squalor of my temporary home. This is not you, man. He dragged me out, forced food into me, and most importantly listened without judgment, as I poured out the whole sordid story. You fucked up spectacularly, he said finally. But you are still here, which means you have a responsibility to try making amends, even if they are never accepted. His words penetrated my fog of self-pity. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but a stark reminder that my choices had consequences that others were still bearing. The least I could do was bear them too, and try to mitigate the damage where possible. The next day I checked into therapy. My counselor did not offer comfort but held me accountable in ways I desperately needed. "Your children are the victims here," she reminded me constantly. "Their healing comes first. Your desire for forgiveness is secondary." Slowly, painfully, I began confronting the selfishness that had driven my choices. The entitlement I had felt. The compartmentalization that allowed me to betray those who trusted me most. Lisa refused direct contact. Everything filtered through attorneys. I accepted all her terms in the divorce, including the house and the majority of our assets. I secured a modest apartment and found a lower-paying job at a smaller firm. 3 months passed with no contact from my children. I respected Lisa's boundaries, but sent letters to Jack and Amy weekly through the approved legal channels, expecting nothing in return. Each letter acknowledged my wrongdoing, without excuses, updating them on my life only briefly before expressing unconditional love. 6 months after that catastrophic Sunday, I received a message from Lisa's attorney. Amy had asked to meet me with supervision. We arranged to meet at a family counseling center, a neutral location with a therapist present. When Amy walked in, taller than I remembered, more reserved, I fought back tears. She sat across from me, hands folded in her lap, studying me carefully. "I read your letters," she said simply. Our conversation was awkward, halting. Amy had questions I answered, with complete honesty, age-appropriate, but never diminishing my responsibility. "Jack still does not want to see you," she informed me. "He says maybe someday, but not now." I nodded, accepting this. "And Mom?" I asked cautiously. Amy shook her head. "She does not talk about you." When our time ended, she allowed a brief hug, her body stiff but present. A small miracle I did not deserve. Lisa eventually agreed to family therapy sessions, focused on co-parenting. We sat in sterile offices discussing logistics and boundaries, never addressing the broken hearts beneath the practicalities. Jack finally agreed to attend after 8 months, though he spoke only to the therapist, never directly to me. I accepted this limited contact gratefully. In one session, when asked what he needed from me, Jack finally looked at me directly. "I need you to be honest. Always. About everything. I cannot trust anything else." I rebuilt my life in small, humble increments. A modest apartment with a second bedroom for when the children might visit. A steady job with regular hours. Continued therapy to address the underlying issues that had led to my destructive choices. Sobriety, after recognizing alcohol had become a crutch. Each step designed to prove through actions, rather than words, that change was possible. Not to win back what was lost, but to become someone worthy of any relationship my children might someday choose to have with me. A year passed. Amy began visiting regularly, our relationship slowly healing, though permanently altered. Lisa remarried, finding happiness with a decent man who treated my children with respect. I attended Amy's school events, sitting far from Lisa, and her new husband grateful simply to be permitted in the same space as my daughter. And then on his 18th birthday, Jack accepted my phone call. The conversation lasted only minutes, mostly silence between careful words, but it was a beginning. I will never recover what my selfish choices destroyed. My marriage is irrevocably over. My relationship with my children permanently damaged. My reputation in the community tarnished beyond repair. Some consequences cannot be undone, only lived with. The lesson came at an unbearable price, paid primarily by those I profess to love. I learned that integrity once broken can never be fully restored, only rebuilt imperfectly. That trust once shattered may leave permanent scars even if eventually extended again. Every day, I face the results of my actions. Every day I make the choice to accept responsibility rather than seek excuses. Every day I work to deserve the limited relationship my children permit me to have in their lives. It is not the life I envisioned, but it is the one my choices created. I share this painful story not seeking sympathy, but hoping others might recognize the warning signs I ignored. The seemingly small compromises that lead to devastating consequences. The self-deception that allows good people to cause terrible harm. What would you do if you had the chance to go back and make different choices? I would give anything for that opportunity. I encourage you to consider what truly matters in your life right now. Are you protecting it, valuing it, or taking it for granted as I did? Please leave a comment, sharing your thoughts on rebuilding trust after it has been broken. Like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear this warning before making a similar mistake. Thank you for listening to my darkest moment and the painful journey toward redemption that followed.